Hello, my name is Mark Morley, Senior Product Marketing Director for OpenText Business Network. Welcome to Connected Realities, an IoT Innovation Summit hosted by OpenText. Now, we have split our agenda across 2 days, and we will cover two key topic areas. For today's session, we will discuss traceability in motion and how a simple QR code-based traceability solution is helping companies around the world to protect their brands and prevent counterfeit goods from entering their supply chains. Then for tomorrow's session, we will take a look at predictive and AI-driven operations. How can an AI-infused IoT platform allow companies to obtain actionable insights, to optimize processes, and maximize the uptime of key equipment across the extended enterprise? So let's begin today's session, and I would like to welcome Richard Lightfoot to take us through the first presentation.
Mark, thank you for setting the stage so clearly. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. I'm Rich Lightfoot with OpenText, and it's a pleasure to be here at Connected Realities. Over the next few minutes, I'll share why traceability in motion is shaping how we build trust, protect brands, and connect the world. When we talk about traceability, it's easy to think of it as barcodes, audit logs, or compliance, but the reality is far bigger. Traceability is becoming the foundation of trust in the global economy. Look at this number in the upper left corner, 2.3 trillion by 2026. That's the scale of counterfeit and gray market goods flowing through our supply chains. And it's not just a financial drain, it's a brand integrity crisis. Without trusted identity, every product is at risk of being questioned. And it's not only the market that's waking up. If you look in the upper right corner, the EU's Digital Product Passport, or DPP regulation, in 2027 will require traceability of materials, life cycle, and recycling. It isn't a future option. It's a global mandate that changes how products are designed, built, and managed across their entire journey. How are consumers reacting? Consumers are already ahead of us. 79% now say they actively look for guaranteed markers of authenticity. In other words, traceability is not a back office system. It's the new brand currency. It's what our customers trust. It's what regulators demand. And it's where competitive advantage will be won or lost. So as we think about the next 2 days, I'd encourage us to see traceability not as a checkbox for compliance, but as a driver of resilience, customer experience, and brand transformation. Every product tells a story. And with real-time traceability, we finally have the ability to tell that story with truth, with trust, and at scale. Now, here's the reality check. Most organizations aren't there yet. Today's supply chains are still disconnected, reactive, and fragile. We see a lack of traceability end to end and only partial insights into consumer behavior, despite a huge digital spend. Sustainability goals? Without visibility, they remain more promise than proof. Systems are fragmented, no single version of truth, and brand protection is slow, often taking weeks or months to detect diversion or counterfeit activity. Consumers, meanwhile, are skeptical. They don't take a brand's word at face value anymore. And compliance, it's stitched together manually, becoming more onerous every year. This is why traceability can't be treated as a back office function. The old systems were built for yesterday's challenges. What's needed now is a shift from fragmented snapshots to connected real-time intelligence. That's how we move from risk-prone to resilient, from claims to proof, from disconnected to trusted. And with that context, I'm excited to shift this conversation to a real customer perspective, because the most powerful stories aren't about technology itself. but how organizations are actually transforming with it. And that's exactly what you'll hear next. It is my pleasure to introduce Nakeri Enyeyo, Manufacturing Engineer Manager at the global and iconic brand Yeti. Nakeri, welcome.
Thanks, Rich, for having me. It's definitely a pleasure to be here.
Fantastic, Nakeri. Glad you could make it. I'm looking forward to this discussion and sharing it with all of our people tuning in today. So we're going to be talking about serialization and traceability. We'll take a manufacturing viewpoint with Yeti today. But first, let me just set the stage a little bit in how Yeti got, how we partnered with Yeti, how Yeti partnered with OpenText. So Yeti dates back to 1996, and at that time it was founded. It's based on high quality products. What we see with brands of high quality nature, and for that matter, all brands in the open market, they face challenges in their supply chain, primarily around counterfeiting and gray market diversion. And as we mentioned earlier in the presentation, consumers value transparency. They value information. So brands like Yeti are seeking to connect with consumers intently at a per product level. So now, Nakeri, I'm going to shift to a couple questions and we'll get into the discussion. So I've got two questions to start. What triggered Yeti's move into traceability, and why has serialization become central to protecting the Yeti brand?
Sure. So for Yeti, the primary objective was to implement a common and global serialization strategy across all of our products. We also utilize GPass as a brand protection tool and an avenue for customers to register their products. To answer the second part of your question about how it's central to the Yeti brand, the GPass system, or the CPTS system, acts as an additional layer of reassurance to our customers that the product that they're getting or that they have is an authentic Yeti product. It's also an important tool that we utilize to track our products as they travel through our global supply chain.
Fantastic. And let me just clarify for those tuning in, GPass stands for Global Product Authentication Service, and the new name for that service within the OpenText world is Core Product Traceability Service. Okay, Nakeri, I've got a couple more questions. How does the serialization and traceability look in practice? You're putting serialized codes on all of your products, but just explain a little bit what happens and how you use the service today.
Sure. So as you mentioned, this serialization code or QR image that you see there is placed on all of our products, including our case packs, our pallets, and even our containers that are shipped across the world. It provides a data-driven collaboration across our manufacturing, supply chain, and our retail users. This level of traceability, it also provides us with the ability to implement proactive quality management and monitoring.
And with the system, do you ever find the need, serialization at the product and aggregating to case, to pallet, and trailer, to go in at different levels and look at, investigate traceability across those different levels?
Yeah, definitely. Depending on the case or the scenario, we may only need to look at a container level, or we may just focus on, let's say, a case level, a case pack level, to just ensure that what we're shipping or what we have on a container is in fact, that particular product and is going to the right destination.
Fantastic. So Yeti has many different manufacturers across the globe. How do you operationalize transparency across different partnering organizations that are building for Yeti? How do you do that? And give a little bit of scope of the detail of your operation.
Sure. So, we do onboard all our manufacturing partners. That onboarding process is very straightforward and really just requires a few training sessions. Those training sessions are typically not very long, but one thing that we found is once some of our manufacturing partners execute the GPAS process once or twice, it really becomes muscle memory for them. So they catch on pretty quickly to that process. As you can see, we really have over 40 active manufacturing partners that are utilizing the system right now, and we really treat each of them as an extension of our quality management system.
Fantastic. And do you typically do that on site if you can, or have you done it virtually training? How do you approach that with different manufacturers? Basically, some in Asia, some here in the United States. What sort of approach do you take with both of those?
We utilize both the approaches. So we do virtual training sessions with our suppliers, but we have found that being on site and being there with them and with the product and walking them through the process in detail usually helps them to get acclimated to the system fairly quickly. But a lot of times, we'll have to utilize virtual sessions just to account for the different time zones and sometimes just the nature of getting some of the suppliers up to speed will require a virtual session, but being there in person with them and even having some of the open text folks there online with us has been very beneficial.
Fantastic. So let's talk a little bit about how traceability works as an innovation layer, how it enables production efficiency. If you could, every Yeti product gets a product in different manufacturing facilities around the world, aggregates to cases to pallets, and then obviously to shipping containers, and is traced throughout the supply chain. But how does it help with production efficiency from monitoring, so to speak?
So at a company like Yeti, as you can imagine, we have a very large product portfolio. And what GPAS does is it gives us the ability to use traceability data for us to address issues and defects upstream versus catching them and dealing with them downstream. This really helps us to accelerate our responsiveness when these events do occur. Also, the lessons learned are also shared across our supply chain, which that just helps us to feed a continuous improvement loop.
So with the codes attached to products, are you adding any additional information in this process that helps you in that process? What I mean by that are any attributes or metadata added to your products in the production process that help you in your function as a manufacturer and engineer?
Yeah, definitely. So we add a lot of the basic data that you would expect to see when you're investigating where a product came from. So the manufacturer itself, the date and time that it was produced, as well as the specific information, like what is this product? So all of that is captured and it lives with the product as it travels through our supply chain.
So just to put that in context, every single product carries with it in a digital form attached to the code when it was manufactured, what product it is, where it when it left a particular manufacturer, and where it was received in its process through the supply chain.
That is correct.
Fantastic. So I think it would be informative to the listeners today to hear a little bit about best practices from your perspective, from an actual user of product traceability service and our serialization solution. So if you could share some best practices, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, some of the things that I think could really be beneficial is to build an adherence system. So don't just think about this effort or traceability as just a process or something that is paper, process on paper. Actually build an ecosystem around it with defined users and expectations and plans. And then some other key things is that allow the serialization data that is captured to flow across the key stakeholders seamlessly. So ensure that those functions or groups that need the information have access to that information. And then, like Yeti, make the traceability part of the brand story. So, we have the ability for our customers to scan that QR code and register their products online with us. I think that really helps in the larger implementation of a system like the GPAS system.
Fantastic. Well, if I could just wrap up our conversation with some key points, I think that would be great, but I really appreciate you being here. Let me just wrap up. We started our Yeti partnership and journey back in 2017. And core to that service from day one, there were two tenets that were there. Actually, three. There was the brand protection, which is core to product traceability service. There was the traceability at a very granular level. We can pick up any Yeti in the world and look exactly where it traveled. And then the engagement side, the ability to have a digital engagement point on every single Yeti product so that you can, one, register that product, but also from your perspective as the brand that carries, share important information, cross-sell, anything that warranty registration, and so forth. So it's been an incredible journey that we're on, and we look forward to many more years. And I will say this, that the service has continued to evolve since we started. We've added new things and new traceability functions. So it's been a fantastic journey to be on. So any last words from you?
No, I agree. I think well put, Rich. It was a pleasure to be here and to talk with you.
Well, thank you so much. And to our listeners, I am now going to pass it over to my colleague, Steve Dale, who will be talking to Jonathan Cullender from Shell Oil. Thank you so much, everybody. Bye-bye.
Hello, thank you, Rich. Thank you, Nakiri, for a great session. My name is Steve Dale, and I lead a number of global IoT projects for OpenText. Today, I'll be hosting our conversation with Shell. Shell are a very well-known global energy company, and they've been a long-standing global partner of OpenText, specifically around supply chain projects, and that spans across EDI connectivity through to product track and trace solutions. Shell's integration journey goes back many decades, and they are truly a global integration organization. They're known for a number of industry firsts. We might learn about some of that today, and they have shaped how global supply chains operate today. We have the pleasure of being joined by Jonathan Cullender. Jonathan is a global leader for automation, power platforms, and integration technologies at Shell. And today he will be sharing his perspective on how integration is evolving in the age of connected intelligence. So welcome to the summit today, Jonathan.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you very much.
It's good to have you. I'm really looking forward to this subject because I think we're talking about IoT. Integration really is critical to delivering value from IoT. So I think it's going to be great. I've got some questions to go through. So if that's okay, we'll get straight into that.
Yeah, certainly. Please just go ahead.
So I'd like to understand a bit about Shell's integration leadership. And I've mentioned you've been recognized for a number of integration firsts in the supply chain space. I'd like to know what you think has enabled Shell to consistently be leaders in this area.
Yeah, thank you. So a lot of the innovation and the firsts in the space, really they're driven by the customer journey. So we look to integration to support our quite complex business processes. Operating in multiple countries, each country's got lots of rules and regulations around hydrocarbon management, energy supply. Our supply chain integration is just the middle part of a comprehensive suite of order to cash management integration. But it's important to ensure that the data journey is as robust and secure and reliable as the physical goods supply chain. So focusing on that allows Shell to maximize value throughout the supply chain. So we maintain a well-curated basket of integration solutions. It allows IT to support the business with the most fit-for-purpose way, which maximizes both customer satisfaction and it helps Shell to reduce the cost to serve for each interaction. And doing that through the development of new innovations such as trading grid hosting for critical APIs really allows us to meet the customer's curiosity for new solutions and Shell's requirements for secure, robust, and reliable integration solutions.
So API is obviously a key to that, and you spoke about the technology there. Is there also an element of maybe culture or your leadership that also facilitates that mindset around innovation?
Yeah, but we must remember that integration is seldom a business differentiator. It's an enabler. So delivery of the integration solutions has to complement the business innovation. So as the business innovates products or services or new user experiences, the integration innovations, they need to support that. They need to ensure that the data is there and readily available for business decisions or transactional decisions. And that, again, it can only be delivered through effective and reliable integration solutions. It's quite easy to be distracted by emerging trends, but true value can only be built on solid foundations. So that innovation in the integration space is really making sure that business need for data is met. Improved resilience, increased security and robustness, things like self-healing interfaces, exception handling, and the deployment of new types of interfaces or new build or implementing change requests really have to support that. So innovation and integration is driven by innovation in the business space.
So staying on that innovation theme, across the summit, we've spoken about moving, or IoT moving, from edge experimentation to much broader enterprise-wide strategy and benefits. And from your perspective, how do you think integration technology or integration philosophy is evolving to sort of keep up with this shift?
Yeah, so it's about getting the growth plans right. As you move into areas where you're looking to establish new processes, new technologies, start with the simple use cases. Build from the basics. Start to build velocity of value-adding solutions. It's always tempting to go and explore the full feature set, but unless you're going to deliver value and consistency in today's challenged environments, it's very unlikely you're going to get continued support unless you're bringing dollars back to the bottom line.
Absolutely. That takes us back to what you mentioned before around the technology supporting the business. And I'm always fascinated by sort of cross business unit conversation. Are you seeing an increase or challenges around collaborating with different business units?
Well, actually, as we move forwards, we have a philosophy, a strategy of simplification and standardization, particularly within Shell. We try and encourage different business units to follow enterprise standards. Federated is great in a less, shall we say, regulated environment. But when you're having to deliver solutions that have to be compliant and auditable, that have to meet an increasing plethora of government requirements, for example, e-billing, e-invoicing, transaction visibility, all these things add complexity, and the most effective way to manage that complexity is through standardization. Get one really good solution that works well and try and minimize deviation, minimize customization, because any customization, any stretch of the base functionality is going to manifold increase your support complications. And when you're working in a 24/7 global environment, you really want the most reliable support structure to keep your integration solutions going. So that's achieved through simplicity and standardization.
Yeah, I've experienced some of that from working with Shell, and that comes across that consolidation as well helps with that simplification and standardization. So that leads us on to sort of Shell's journey, and we haven't got this time to go into project specifics here today, but what lessons have you personally or Shell learned from scaling integration at such scale? You've truly got a sort of complex global footprint, and maybe there's some lessons for other people to take away from your experience.
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, it's really important to build from the basics. Identify your base offering. What is the commonality that the majority of your trading partners or stakeholders require? Work on that, deliver that, and build your reputation on that. Once you have that base function in, that's reliable, that's delivering value, then when you iterate, you can add the complexity gradually. You've got to build for production. Pilots or POCs, and they can often be seen as a good use of effort, but really, when you're running a POC for one or two complex use cases with an experienced team because you're trying something new, very rarely will you get good value from that. It's going to be relatively poor value for dollar investment versus building a repeatable, simple solution that covers one really popular use case. And then you can draw on the value that you're earning, and you can, as you do, iterate, then you can put the complexity in for subsequent use cases. But you learn what you build, and complex cases become easier with experience. So build the common stuff first, the simple stuff first, and use that experience to learn how things break, how you fix them when you move into more complex use cases. So it really is broaden the base and build the complexity on the future iterations.
Yeah, I like the building for production. I think that's really important, especially the conversations and the projects we work on in IoT. Some people don't have that mindset. They get stuck in that pilot phase and they're not really building for scale and for production, as you've mentioned. So just jumping back into sort of the innovation theme again, one of the summit's themes across these 2 days is replacing sort of, we'd say, lagging metrics, maybe yesterday's data, with much more live signals and live data. What challenges do you see in sort of building real-time integration into the way you work at scale globally?
Yeah, I think what has to be front of mind is don't compromise robustness for speed. Ensure that where data is important, when the transactions are important, you need to have traceability, you need to have error management, and you need to have resilience. Nice to have data, enriching data, such as where's my truck, live tracking, that kind of thing. They tend to have a lesser expectation from the stakeholder. You know, we've all been sitting there looking at the phone, where's my Amazon delivery? It's 8 stops away, it's 6 stops away. You hit it 3 or 4 times, and it's still 6 stops away and jumps to 4. You're not really bothered about that as long as you get your package. But if you're working on something that's part of maybe an order to cash transaction, that's got to be on time, it's got to be accurate, and it's got to be auditable. So real-time alerts and actionable monitoring, they're a great complement, but traditional near real-time integration solutions, such as all the protocols like EDI, they still have a key part to play in the real-time world, and we shouldn't overlook the established, robust, and effective integrations tools that we have. If we're trying to get that real-time, they are the foundation that real-time should work on top of.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, that the modern sort of real-time metrics don't replace the need for accurate data that goes before it. I mean, you bring all the data together, and that's where the true power comes from that. I often am heard speaking about the Amazon or the Uber effect in terms of people's expectations in the B2B world that's been set by those guys in Amazon. So that's some fantastic advice from you there. Just looking ahead now, talking about the future, what excites you? What's coming down the line in terms of the future of integration? We're talking a lot here about AI. You're very focused and have been on the automation journey for some time. All of this is becoming a little bit more embedded in operations. So what's exciting you going forward?
Yeah, so I think I'll break it down to three different views: the shorter term, the mid-term, and the longer term, if I can, Steve. So on the shorter term, we're always looking for faster onboarding of new trading partners, interfaces, and onboarding new businesses as well as our global footprint changes. Throughout the energy transition, we divest, we retire, and we also spin up or acquire and grow new electron-based businesses versus the more traditional hydrocarbon ones. We also look to see more integration solutions being delivered through things like CI/CD pipelines. We look for interfaces that can have self-healing elements. We look for things like interfaces that can validate data, things like chargeback reduction and in-flight message correction. And we're very nearly there with a lot of this. We've got a lot of pieces of the jigsaw already. I think we just need to sit down with a clever guy and put them together, and we'll be there with a lot of this short-term stuff. So some really exciting news stories, perhaps, for the early part of 2026. And then in the midterm, I think the ability to get business insight through interrogating the data. Things like validation of AI risk monitoring through the message data. So when you have a trading partner alert that appears to your risk monitoring, can we validate that through AI interrogation of payload data? Is what we're being advised by our credit agencies actually what we're seeing through interaction data? And then in the longer term, where we've got terabytes of data flowing in the future, that could give us valuable insights into the in-the-moment health of the company. Think of it as your smartwatch monitoring your heart rate or your blood pressure or your oxygen level. Well, can we use those terabytes of data to monitor things like cash flow or trending issues or customer sentiment? When we look at things like the Vertica tool that OpenText have developed, used by the Jaguar e-racing team, the amount of data that can handle in such a short time, that I think is the kind of longer term view that I think we can be excited about when you apply AI analysis to that. And rather than having the conversation with the data, the AI uses the data more like a dashboard, and you have 3 or 4 key metrics that business leadership can see almost real time as to how that cardiovascular system of the business is working through the data in the interactions.
That's a good look to the future. I think any self-healing technology is really interesting. I'd love to see how that's going to develop out. But I think what you're talking about, integration, fits very well with IoT. The more, I see IoT as a data creation engine effectively, and it just puts more data in the mix to interrogate. And the more you can bring that data together with existing sources of data, the more value that you're going to get from that. So that's a great takeaway. And is there anything about automation or agentic AI? Is that on the radar at all for you? There's a lot of talk about that at the moment.
Yeah, agentic is everywhere at the moment. It's the hot topic. Personally, within my organization, we've got a few squads that are developing agentic solutions. Part of my area of responsibility is to deliver a digital workforce. So we do automation and some of that is augmented through AI to create agents. And we see a lot of use cases, particularly in areas of the business where you have significant amounts of human effort, customer operations, finance operations, HR, legal, where you've got vast document stores that need to be well understood, or working practices or processes that need to be consistently applied. So we're growing agents in a lot of areas like that. But then the next stage, of course, is agents of agents, where you have hierarchical agents, and that, I think, is going to be the big story for 2026.
Excellent. Lot to be optimistic about. I really appreciate your answers and your time today, Jonathan. It's been very, very insightful, and we wish you all the best with moving forward with your integration. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Steve. Always a pleasure.
Absolutely. And we will be handing over to Gary Maloney for the next session. Thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. First, let me introduce myself. My name is Gary Maloney, and I manage the Open Text Technology Center, where our traceability services reside. And I've been involved in this domain for over 25 years. So our services themselves are very mature, been in the marketplace for many years, and our clients have a large variety of use cases, a large variety of reasons why they would serialize their products and then look to track and trace them through the supply chain and on into the hands of the consumer. So in this brief session today, I want to focus on how our clients derive value, significant value, in the area of brand protection. Now, brand protection as a strategy, as an approach, has many different facets to it. There's no one silver bullet to prevent any illicit activity that could affect the brand. But what we're going to do today is we're going to focus in on the monitoring and detection of illicit activity taking place in the supply chain. And I'm going to go into a demo now to show you how our customers avail of that within our service offering. So I'm going to log into the service now, just going to bring it up. So to start with, we're going to look at two areas. We're going to look at what shipment and what code related data from consumer scans is available in the service. So let's start by looking at the supply chain and the shipment analysis screen. So from here, you'll see for a chosen shipment that the supply chain for this client has 5 particular nodes. Could be contract manufacturing going through distributors and then onto a distribution warehouse, for example. So within this, as you will see, there's various nodes, and we're able to drill down on shipment data just to see shipment analysis and see what shipping related attributes have been captured and are available from the ship to date, the location. So all the usual shipment related information that you will see. Nice to have, important to have. So just showcasing how all the data is available and then visualized and made available. Now we're going to go and we're going to look at code related data and see what code related data is available. So we're going to look at our command center screen, and we're going to look at the scan history related to a particular product. Okay, so we can zoom in, we can look at all the scans that are taking place, across a global marketplace for the brand owner. We can go in, we can click on any particular code, and for that code, we can look at a whole variety of product attributes that have been captured. So we seek to capture all data that's available and to make it available back. So when it was actually manufactured, shipped, and also there's an element of aggregation about it that's captured during the shipping process. So likewise, that data shows all the information, shows we're capturing all the information, we're visualizing it and making it available. However, now let's focus on how we put that data to work. So what we've seen in terms of shipment and code related data is nice to have, but it's not actionable in nature. a better way of looking at a report. So now let's focus on how we put that data to work. So what's unique about our service is that the business value and the business intelligence value it generates. So what's important to note is that what's wrapped around GPAS here is a business rules engine. And that business rules engine allows you to build rules related to product, geography, anything associated with the product and shipment, really. And the reason why we put that rule in place would be a whole variety. Quite often in this area, you really don't know what's taking place in your supply chain. So let's say there is, we want to build let's say a shipment has gone missing, for example, and that shipment was meant to go from point A to point B. It didn't arrive at point B. Also, maybe it's suspicious in terms of grey market activity taking place in the supply chain. And the product could be being sold in a geography that it shouldn't be sold in. So the track missing shipment rule has been built. And if we click on the triggers, so when a supply chain manager comes in, looks for what business rules have been triggered, we can see here that there's been consumer scan data taking place. And it seems to be centered around, in this case, this example, around the Memphis area. Now, don't forget, this shipment wasn't meant to be in the marketplace. It was last seen in transit. So this business rule, now that it's been triggered, allows us to take an action. So we can take an action at an individual level or a code level. And what we can do is we can place a rule on that shipment that anytime any of the products in that shipment are scanned, please provide a negative response back to the consumer, because that shipment is considered stolen at this point. And this activity, we can further customize a rule that anytime any of the products in those shipments are scanned, that it'll say, please report back to the brand owner. So in turn, you're making your consumers, your brand protection agents in the marketplace. Okay, so that's an example as it relates to shipment tracking. So now let's look at a business rule engine example related to counterfeit scans. So as I said before, you quite often don't know the extent, the nature of what illicit activity is taking place around your products in the supply chain. And in this example here, we've built a generic rule which says, please trigger any alerts around any scan activity with a count greater than 10. So any product that has been scanned more than 10 times. So, and in this case, and these are 10 different IP addresses. So in this case, this particular code has been triggered and has been scanned multiple times and in multiple geographies, which doesn't make sense. One single code, granted, it could exist scanned in the shop, scanned at home, but not scanned in two different geographies, multiple locations. So this then shows you this code is suspicious itself in nature. It looks like illicit activity is taking place. So what we can do then on this code, because we know there's illicit activity, we can then look at what is the history behind this code since inception, since the service has been used. And now we can see that there's far more than just 10 codes that have been scanned, 10 times it's been scanned. It's been scanned multiple times. So this code is definitely subject to illicit activity, counterfeit. And then by placing a rule on this counterfeit, we have an action we can take on it. So we can either display a negative message back to the consumer saying this code is subject to counterfeit activity, please report back to the brand, or we can continue to track the activity of that code, so we can continue to track. So you now have a specific rule related to a specific code. So you've gone from not knowing what's taking place in the supply chain to now identifying a specific code that has been counterfeited. And now through this rule you've based, for any further, you'll get to understand the nature of the counterfeit operation. Is it local? Is it national? Is it global? So these are very, very, this shows the real value behind how you put the data to work. So take it a step further. So where are we bringing this service and what lies ahead? So through AI, the interaction we saw of how you go in, you set goals, you build rules, you take actions against them. AI will enable the analyzing of the data and performing the diagnosis of what is required. So placing actions on rules relating to shipments, on rules, building rules on what it considers to be suspicious activity. So at present, the service is operating in a very descriptive and diagnostic manner. Descriptive in terms of the BI showing you what's happening, and diagnostic by allowing you analyze and diagnose what's taking place. So we've moved beyond the collecting of data in its simplest form and creating reports of activity that you have to trawl through. We're using BI to be able to describe and diagnose what's happening. Where this service is going and where AI is taking us is that AI, a UI for AI, will sit in front of this, enable you to interact with the data, ask questions around what rules have been triggered. Please provide me what's considered to be the codes with the highest counterfeit count. So it's the engagement you can do through AI looking at that data is where we're bringing the services by enabling AI tools to perform the analysis, diagnostics, and we're moving into another phase. We're moving into a phase where we're going beyond the diagnostics as you see it at the moment to more prescriptive to suggest what should you be doing from the value. So a certain amount of domain knowledge is needed at present to be able to look at activity and understand what's taking place. And so it's really supply chain managers, but through the use of AI, the domain knowledge will exist within the AI to be able to diagnose and predict what data. So that's just a taste of, for just one use case, the value that's generated through our service. Thank you very much for your time, and I'll head back to Mark.
Now, our second poll, when looking for an IoT solution online, what would you be most likely to search for? Please choose one of the 6 options. Option 1, how to reduce downtime using connected devices. Option 2, predictive maintenance software for industrial assets. Option 3, real-time equipment monitoring platform. Option 4, digital twin or sensor data analytics tools. Option 5, best IoT platform for manufacturing, logistics, utilities. And the freeform text box, please place another option in this box if you so wish. We hope you have found our sessions today interesting, and I certainly believe that IoT combined with the power of AI will offer companies a new way to build and analyze digital twins of their equipment and associated operations. Gen AI will certainly change how we interact with connected devices and how we obtain insights simply by having a conversation with those devices. On behalf of OpenText, I wanted to thank our customers and OpenText presenters for the thought-provoking sessions, and more importantly, our audience for taking the time out of your busy activities and schedules to attend our summit. And we hope you found the sessions interesting. Let's now go to our Q&A discussion. Okay, so I'm just looking through the Q&A panel now. We seem to have a couple of questions, which is always good news. First question actually to Richard. So traceability has evolved from a compliance checkbox to a competitive differentiator. So in your view, what really is the biggest mindset shift companies need to make to treat traceability, not as a cost or control, but as a catalyst for intelligence, trust, and brand resilience?
Mark, thank you. Hopefully everyone can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, great. No, great question. There's a mindset shift that is occurring when companies stop viewing traceability as a system of record and start seeing it as a system of intelligence. So there's a lot happening in this field. There's a lot happening from different initiatives around the world. And I think there's really just three main things that I want to point out to help answer that question. When you look at it as a system of intelligence, you gain knowledge of operational efficiencies. Knowledge is power, as we all know. Data is power, but using that data effectively to drive prediction versus reaction. So that's point number one. Protecting the brand. We saw Gary with different features and so forth from a business rules perspective to offer brand protection, not only within the supply chain, but also out into the open market at the consumer level. Consumers get notification, but the brand gets notification in real time, and can really dive in and investigate what is happening and where it's happening as a system of scalability. And finally, when we look at this as a system of intelligence, it's a new way to connect with from a brand perspective, to their consumers. There's so much you can do with a code that offers traceability, and that's primarily what's driving a lot of these initiatives around the world. With GPAS, or Product Traceability Service, we see the digitization of products as a most powerful connection between the brand and their consumers, and we're seeing that expanding all over the place. So, if you're just checking a box to meet a mandate, there's so much more that you can do with that same code that is traveling on your products throughout the world. So, thank you, Mark.
Thanks, Richard. Okay, so just looking through the Q&A, we have one more question in the queue. Jonathan, so you've led Shell's automation integration landscape for years, and we've actually both presented on a number of conferences in the past, connecting everything from customer operations to energy assets. Interoperability often sits on everyone's slide, but has no real owner. What concrete frameworks, standards, or practices has Shell put in place to make system-to-system integration, especially for your product traceability across different geographies, truly work at scale?
Okay, yeah, thanks, Mark. So I think understanding the business requirement and nature of the data is really important. But equally, I think I mentioned in a question earlier with Steve, standardization of your processes, making sure they're robust, traceable, auditable, and secure. That's really key for the whole order-to-cash process, including supply chain. So that simplify and that standardize. Once you have that in place, then you can look to using the right tools for the job. And those right tools, they should be repeatable and scalable, whether it's an API or an EDI. Really continuing to minimize customization, minimize localization changes as much as possible, allow you to create that real true global framework of robust, reliable, and secure integrations.
No, that's great. Thanks very much, Jonathan. So I'm just looking through the Q&A panel. At the moment, there's no further questions from what I can see. So I just want to say thanks again for all of our day one, and I emphasize the day one of our summit because day two is tomorrow. Thanks for the questions that came through. So that is the end of the session for today, and we look forward to welcoming you back tomorrow for part two of our summit, and really where we're going to be taking a deep dive into IoT and how companies can build a predictive and AI-driven operation. So with that, we look forward to seeing you back here tomorrow, hopefully, and goodbye.